We continue our tour of the NFL Network. I'm joined alongside by NFL Total Access host Mike Yam, and we are in the green room. It's a great spot you picked for this interview. I like it.
It is, only because of the snacks in the background. So everything's complimentary, so feel free when we're done.
You know what? I might have to.
And there are healthy choices there, too. There is
here
fruit.
We go. Fruit,
So,
there you go.
you know.
We try to keep a healthy diet around here. Well, there's a lot of healthy talk about the Vikings going on right now. What is the biggest storyline that you've been following in recent weeks?
Look, I think for every Minnesota fan and generally speaking, broadly speaking for the NFL, to know that Kirk Cousins isn't going to be there, which candidly really surprised me personally. I think once he went down and we saw what the rotation in this offense looked like, I was like, hey, Kirk's probably getting a little bit of leverage right now for a new contract. Obviously, it didn't work out for him. He heads down to Atlanta, but currently, as we are less than a month away from the NFL draft, we are focused in on one major storyline. Is Minnesota going to move up to try to get one of those quarterbacks? 2 first-round picks. They have a little bit of ammunition.
What buzz around the first-round draft picks that the Minnesota Vikings now have? What buzz are you following?
So I think there's a lot to be said here, because when you look in that range with Denver and Minnesota, and I think you can make an argument even at 13 with the Raiders, there's buzz about the Giants at 6 possibly moving up. Who's the guy that you really love? Like, who's the guy that's actually capable of leading your football team? And you know, if I'm a Minnesota fan, I'm sitting here going like, which prospect do I feel comfortable in week number 1 potentially starting? And maybe you don't need to be that comfortable because Sam Darnold is there and he's got some experience. And I covered the Pac-12 for a long time. I remember seeing Sam up close and personal, the Rose Bowl against Penn State and Saquon Barkley. I still remember these vivid games where Sam balled out. And at the start of last year, David Carr actually thought that Sam Darnold would start the year for them, and it wasn't going to be Brock Purdy, who was coming off of an injury. I think there's some upside there with Sam, but this room doesn't have a whole lot of starting experience. Last 2 years, 12 combined starts among the 3 quarterbacks in that quarterback room. They got to focus in on a prospect who could lead them. I just don't know if you can move up high enough to get a guy that is truly a week 1 starter. And maybe once again, you don't have to. Maybe it's that guy that can, take the reins at some point in the middle of the season or even next year.
I think the intent is that Sam Darnold starts, is from what I'm hearing. So there's a ton of confidence behind him. At owners' meetings, Kevin O'Connell spoke at length about seeing Sam Darnold's best football in front of him. Being someone who was on the sidelines, watching that. Obviously, he was a high pick in the draft. What made him so?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. As a guy that watched Sam up close and now tracking his career in the NFL, I actually don't think Minnesota is in the worst situation with Sam Darnold. I think there's a lot of upside. I think if you look at his performances, statistically speaking, or the results, wins and losses, it's easy to go negative on Sam. And yet it was a revolving door in that offensive line in New York when he got drafted. Skill position players weren't what they are currently with Aaron Rodgers and what he gets to work with in New York. And then same situation in Carolina. Look, Bryce Young was the number 1 pick last year, and Bryce really struggled. I don't know if the setup was perfect for Sam to have success in both of those spots. And yet I actually think the complement of players around him on this Minnesota roster is better than what he's had in those other 2 spots.
That's very encouraging to hear. And obviously it will be a quarterback battle when it comes down to training camp. A lot of weeks until we get there, of course. But as this shakes down in the NFC North, how do you feel like the Vikings have attacked this offseason to prepare for that?
Yeah, the biggest hurt for me, the Danielle Hunter move, and the fact that he was so much fun for me to watch and how dominant he was. I remember, and you guys do sort of like an annual trip here to Los Angeles, and you get to talk to everyone. I remember when Brian Flores took over that defense, we felt like, hey, good things are coming here. And yet I do think, and I'm a little concerned really about the defensive unit as a whole with some of the attrition that they did have to that roster. Bringing in Griffin, I think certainly helps. There's no question. But to me, the 2 biggest pieces for this upcoming year, besides the quarterback spot, is how do you thrive offensively and make sure that Justin Jefferson feels really, really comfortable and not want to go anywhere. And then number 2, defensively, how do you make sure that you're getting pressure on the opposing quarterbacks, especially in that division? To me, those are the big 2 football storylines that I'm watching.
Well, we'll always love your insight, Mike. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Of course, you can see him on NFL Total Access on the NFL Network every single weekday night. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Get the snacks.
Oh, I've been eyeing the fruit, especially the fruit.
Yeah, and stay hydrated.